recorded for rebroadcast on the local cable channels and on the internet. A couple of announcements and then we'll get right to business. The Board of Assessors has completed the FY property reevaluation. Taxpayers are invited to inspect their values. You can look at them either at the assessor's office or you can go online and assess them, your assessment through the town's website. Essex County Creates Calendar. That's a good place to look for new cultural events and to access them, and also to add yours if need be. And the Essex County Arts and Culture Summit will be held September 27th from 9 to 4 in Beverly, so you want to check in on that. And finally, there are still opportunities for committee open committee vacancies for the town of West Newbury, and you can look on the Board of Selectmen pages if you're so interested. So, without further ado, let's have everybody introduce themselves, and then I'll turn it over to Angus.
Hello everybody, I'm Michael Morrison. I'm a bridge structural engineer for this project. Peter Reed at BSC Group, I'm the transportation group.
Matt Coogan, Chief of Staff for Mayor Holliday's office in Newburyport.
Glenn Kemper, Selectman from West Newbury. You need to talk into that. It's for home, not for here.
Yeah. So just make sure it has a green.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's gotta be pretty.
Thank you.
Dave Archibald.
Rick Parker, also Board of Selectmen, West Newbury.
Angus Jennings, I'm the town manager.
John Arkwright, city engineer, Newburyport.
Wayne's doing chairs. He's working. He had a cushy job in Newburyport, now he.
Yes. So Angus, sure.
So again, I'm Angus Jennings, town manager, and first just want to recognize the turnout. This is terrific. I know it was both the board's objective as well as the city's to get as much public input at this stage of design as we could. So I want to thank everybody for turning out. So just briefly, the owner of the project is both the city and the town. Part of the project scope was to do a field survey, and they determined that the municipal boundary is pretty much the dividing line at the center of the bridge. The design consultant, as referred to, was BSC Group. They were procured last summer through the city after the city got a Mass DOT small bridge grant. The anticipated schedule for the project is all, of course, subject to funding appropriation, but the goal would be to start construction sometime in calendar year 2021. And the consultants will go through in more detail the timeline of what it would take to get from here to there. Once it starts, it's anticipated to take about a year of construction. So this has been a real collaborative effort. The bridge straddles both the city and the town line. There's been a lot of mutual assistance between the communities on grant applications, both the town of West Newbury supporting the city's application for the small bridge grant program last summer, which was successful and yielded $500,000 of design support, as well as the city was, and BSC Group as well, were very helpful to the town of West Newbury in the MassWorks grant application that we put in last month. We submitted that in August, so we don't have an answer yet, but we have petitioned the state for $1 million to support the project. We've had a number of joint meetings between the communities as well as a series of conference calls. So while the contract with BSC is with the city of Newburyport and they're ultimately responsible, I feel that West Newbury has had a seat at the table throughout, and I think that continues. There's a lot of project complexity which the engineers will get into in more detail, but the fact that this straddles a drinking water source adds a lot of complication both from permitting and from construction management. So that's part of when you see the estimated costs, it does play through in the project costs. The depth of water, poor soil conditions, and minimal existing roadway width all add to the project complexity. So with that, there's a more detailed project timeline. I'm gonna turn it over to BSC Group for that, or to John Eric. So John Eric is the city engineer in Newburyport. Thanks.
As you said, I'm the city engineer. 2/3 of our engineering department is here. Diane Gagnon's here. She's here on behalf of West Newbury as a resident, but she's also part of the engineering group in Newburyport. So if you have any questions, you have a local for you. Answer everything all the questions you have. So I'm up here mainly just to give you a face. If you have any technical questions, feel free to call me. We'll keep this thing organized through the town, but we are open. There's nothing about Public Works that is not open, so don't call me too often, but we are there. The bridge has been deteriorated for years, as most of you know. The infamous hump was there probably 25, 30 years ago. High schoolers used to take off on it, probably even longer than that. But it really started getting bad. And when we had Wayne, before Wayne left our community, he put some PK nails on either side of a crack to measure it. And it started getting bad. That was in 2016. Also that summer, DOT coincidentally inspected the bridge as part of their routine, and they gave it a severe priority rating. So my job was, as a city engineer, was to seek engineering firms that could help us out with this. It didn't take me long to figure out who would be. BSC is a highly reputable bridge group, and Mass Highway, they do a lot of bridges with Mass Highway. They helped write, I don't know the detail, but you helped with some review processes of Mass Highway, or?
It was for the small
peer
bridge
review?
grant. We helped write that portion of it and helped
Yeah.
assist the state with putting that out.
So, they know what's needed in a bridge. So everything that's spoken tonight, it's not, bells and whistles, it's truly what's needed. We want to keep this as minimal as possible. The reality is, it's 2019, and we have to adhere to standards. That's just the way it is. You'll hear plenty of that from BSC Group. But, if we all had our way, it'd be so much easier if we could do it the way we want, but this is the way it's gonna be, and they have a really good plan to present to you. In 2017, MassDOT updated the inspection, and it was, a couple items were collapsing even more, was the side retaining wall. June of 17, we submitted for the small bridge grant application. In May, we finally shut it down. And eventually it ended up being because of a total collapse. The granite block just fell in the water. So that was an easy decision for us, but it had to be done. July, the small bridge grant was executed, and we finally signed an agreement with BSC. We've been having coordination meetings early this year. They're also working with your community in Angus to, they submitted a MassWorks grant proposal. And hopefully, if that goes through, and they'll explain to you, there's I think $1 million that hopefully we can get for that. So that'll be good. So moving forward, so that's the latest. So we're here. So our main goal tonight, in case he doesn't emphasize it a million times, our main goal tonight from everyone here, we need to pick a bridge type so we can have BSC move forward. That's our main goal tonight. So thank you. I'll turn it over to Micah.
Can you just make sure that microphone's near your mouth?
I'm gonna try. It's my very
You can
best.
bring it, you can pick it up to it and move it around if you like.
Okay. So this is the current condition of the existing bridge. It was built in 1891. It did sustain a partial collapse. And the roadway width on the current bridge is 20 feet. Cars seem to slow down because of this. This is a narrow roadway width for a bridge. Usually a standard roadway width would be 24 feet. The existing span is 14 feet, but you have extensive retaining walls on either side, so that's how we're able to get away for this bridge with a 14-foot span. These are just some drawings of the existing condition. They help us in our preliminary design. The big thing that to take away from this is the depth of water out there. We did survey out there.
Right here.
For MassDOT, you have to do what's called a hydraulic report, and you have to do extensive survey in the water so you can do a hydraulic model of it. And with this depth of water, it does increase the complexity of this construction. So that's one thing to consider as we move forward. So this is the project location. Middle Street is in West Newbury, then you go over the Artichoke River, and then you're in Newburyport on Plummer Spring Road. This is a FEMA flood map. It's showing the 100-year flood elevation, which is 13. It's controlled by a dam that's downstream from the bridge itself. The current bridge, or the bridge that we're looking at replacing this with, would have an elevation of 19.5. So we are raising the bridge up slightly. So during the bridge type study, both communities wanted an extensive review of the available options. This is even more than we usually do for MassDOT. Below is a listing of the options, a brief description, and then the associated cost, or the estimated cost of it. So this is alternative one. It is a 45-foot span with a 24-foot wide roadway. It does not have sidewalks on the bridge, but it is 4 feet wider. It's going from the 20 to the 24 feet. And with that, you have added vehicular and pedestrian safety on it, but there is no sidewalk on the bridge. I also want to mention during this stage that we did do geotechnical investigation out here, and the soils are rather poor. With poor soils, it means that most of your bridge structures will be placed on piles. This is what the geotechnical recommendation was. So 6 of these 7 alternatives that we're going to go through have pile support. So this is alternative 2. This is also a 45-foot span with a 24-foot wide roadway. Both communities are in favor of this option, specifically because it has a sidewalk on the bridge for greater pedestrian access and safety. Some of the drawbacks of this alternative are the cost and because there would be filling of wetlands, there would be additional environmental permitting. So the community's also asked us to look at putting two sidewalks on this bridge. So we looked at it. It would be possible, but this is the most expensive alternative of all 7. An additional aspect of it is that it would fill a significant portion of wetlands, and it would be the most extensive permitting. Plus, it's also difficult to go from this very wide structure to meet up with the adjacent existing roadway width. Alternative 4, we were asked to look in the opposite direction about reducing the roadway width from the standard 24 to 22 to see if there would be a cost savings. We did a cost estimate for this, and there was no substantial cost savings by reducing the roadway width by 2 feet. And by reducing the roadway width by 2 feet, you do have a decrease in your pedestrian and vehicular safety on the bridge. So alternative 5, this was an early alternative that we were exploring. We were trying to go with the arch type style of the existing bridge. The problem, or one of the drawbacks of the arch in this scenario, is because of the poor soils, it's placed on piles. Arches are extremely heavy because you have all this fill placed on top of it, so that increases the number of piles that are required. That with an increase in piles, that increases the cost. So then we started looking at alternative 6. Alternative 6 was to see if we shrunk the span, if we'd be able to save some money. What we found out is that with a shorter span, you still have to get from the stream bed elevation or the bottom of the reservoir back up to your proposed grade. And in doing that, you need longer retaining walls. If you have longer retaining walls, you need additional piles and you need additional concrete. So in the end, this alternative 6 and alternative 5 was roughly the same cost. This was an attempt to reduce costs also. This is usually the bread and butter for a short span bridge. It's very simple. It goes in very quickly. The issue out here was that the poor soil conditions and the depth of water drove up the construction costs significantly. The footings actually have to be dug down very deep. We're trying to get rid of the use of piles, so we were investigating that. But once you eliminate the piles, the foundations get very large. So with that, this becomes one of the more expensive options, where usually on other sites, this would be the cheapest. Let's see. Oh, one thing is that we are recommending choosing from alternative 1 and alternative 2 that are shown back here. Alternative 1 does not have a sidewalk. Alternative 2 does have a sidewalk. So those are our 2 recommendations. And then now turn it over to Peter Reed to talk a little bit about the roadway.
Thanks, Micah. Thank you, Micah. Good evening. So Micah and I have worked closely together on many bridge replacements. My background is more on the roadway side of things and drainage. So on this project here, when we do a bridge replacement, we want to minimize the roadway limits of replacement. However, there's a number of things that come up when you start to look at it. We did take a look at the roadway widths, and it was variable. I mean, it's an old road, so it's kind of variable. And so it got as narrow as 16 feet. Going across the bridge, I believe it's 20.
Yes.
So it had some kind of quirks in it. And so you can see on this graphic here,
You can bring that with you if you like.
the fainted,
You can bring that with you.
oh, the faint line here is, what we do is we screen the existing features. So this is, that little EP there is edge of pavement. So you can see how narrow it was getting on one side of the bridge. And so we worked in the horizontal alignment. As I said, we try and minimize the roadway work. We're going about 200 feet to the west into West Newbury. We're going about a little over 100 feet to the east into Newburyport. And then some of the other features, guardrail is always a big issue. When we replace the guardrail, we need to have the required backup behind it so that if it gets hit, it has the proper amount. You want some give, but not a lot. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is that we look at the profile of the road, and this is in a sag. It sort of makes sense because you come down the hill, you go over the Artichoke River, you go back up the other side. But in order to make it blend, and then, as Micah pointed out, with this longer span, we held the low chord, which means of the existing arches like this, and so from there, we came up, and our structure is deeper than the existing bridge, so that's what pushes the roadway. The roadway will be about a foot higher, right?
Yep.
So the roadway will be about a foot higher, which we all kind of agree is a good thing, especially in light of some climate change concerns. And then the other thing is with the new bridge that we're recommending, we've got a bigger opening below the bridge. The hydraulic opening is increased, so that'll help to pass larger storms. So there's a number of benefits that are going to be achieved by putting in the new bridge. This second one is alternative 2, right? And it shows the sidewalk, and there is additional permitting required because you're into the reservoir and with more impact. But otherwise, this is pretty similar to the other one. It's mainly in the retaining wall cost that this is a more expensive option. So with that, we want to talk about the next steps. As John Eric, I believe, was the one who said tonight, our main goal is to select a bridge type. We've talked about the MassWorks grant award notification, which we're hopeful will come through in the fall of 19. We are anxious to get going. I think everyone's anxious for us to get going on the design and permitting for the selected bridge type. And then we hope to start construction in 2021. So with that, I think we're into questions and discussion.
I just want to make sure, just want to clarify something, please. Sorry, buddy. We're not picking a bridge type tonight. I don't think we're taking, I think I don't think Newburyport's ready. We don't have the mayor here. I think we're going to be taking input and then as soon as possible going to be taking one.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, we want to get as much input as possible, but
Soon, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're not ready to. Yeah.
I think the goal of this meeting is that we were fortunate to receive that small bridge loan and work with BSC, and as mentioned, they're the standard of this industry, and we're lucky that they went through with these different options. We've discussed them internally, we've discussed them with West Newbury, but I think the goal tonight is to hear from residents what their thoughts are about these plans. There's obvious differences in some of the plans that are being described, and with that, of course, comes costs, and we'll need to make those decisions. But I think right now, I'm curious, and I'm sure everyone here is curious to hear what the thoughts are based on the presentation.
Is there gonna be the same process in Newburyport? Who's gonna decide in Newburyport? Donna?
I'm going to give you
Are the
the.
selectmen going to decide for us, and who's gonna decide in Newburyport?
Why don't we keep this out in the audience so everybody pass it around? I know, Jane, you never had.
Do I have to repeat that, Glenn? Yes. Who in Newburyport, are you going to be doing this same process in Newburyport, where you're gonna go to?
This is a Newburyport,
meeting.
this isn't here.
No, I understand that, but we're here with citizens, so I want to know if, in the time is of the essence, if you're going to repeat this exercise in Newburyport in City Council.
As just mentioned, the intention was to have a joint meeting between both communities, so just anyone in Newburyport had the same opportunity to come to this meeting as anyone in West Newbury.
Okay.
We also notified all our city councilors as well. There will be a process, on the government side. We have 11 city councilors. Obviously, we go through a process for appropriation, a little different than how West Newbury does in town meeting. But the intention of this meeting is the public process.
How you doing? Tom Leonard, 45 Garden Street, West Newbury. My question is the rebuilding of this bridge a choice or is it a must? Do we have to rebuild this bridge? That's my question. Who determined that this bridge must be rebuilt? Does that make sense?
That's a great question. I completely agree.
I don't, because let me tell you a little more. I'll tell you a little more. Now, I live near the bridge, and I see West Newbury. I mean, it hasn't altered my life. I do my banking in Newburyport. I shop over there. I do a lot of, and the bridge not being there has not altered my life, my travels or whatever whatsoever. What it has altered is the constant 18-wheelers coming down Garden Street. That's why that bridge caved in the last few years. 18-wheelers coming down, doing three-point turns, going over the bridge into the Newburyport Industrial Park. That's what went on down there. I watched it. And now we have this beautiful road going down there. If the town of Newburyport, West Newbury or Newburyport wanted to buy that and make a recreation area, just think of what it would cost. It's already there, isn't it? I think it's already there. I don't, you see these other roads like Pikes Bridge Road. That is a bridge out there. It's gone. The other one, Crane Neck. We used to drive through there. That bridge, those are gone. I don't.
Which lends the thing that we can't lose them. We're losing egresses out of town more than we're keeping them.
Well, that's fine. I'm not here to.
So after a while, we're only going to be able to go out 113 or Scotland
I'm just
Road.
asking. I don't see the reward for West Newbury of rebuilding a bridge. That's my opinion. That's all.
Okay.
And I don't. I see Newburyport's. The industrial park is the the big benefit of that. That's what I see.
You led a good question.
And who made the choice to rebuild? That's what I want to know.
Both communities. Is there going to be a weight limit on the bridge? That would be a good. Sir, just.
Yeah, I'm listening. I'm making faces, but I'm listening.
I didn't know if you were going to start again. So we have to try to keep some.
Go ahead. Go.
No, there will not be a weight limit on the bridge. If this is gonna be through MassDOT, it has to be up to statutory load, so we would not have a weight limit on this bridge. Another thing is this is an evacuation route for the state, for the Seabrook Nuclear Power Plant, so that may be an issue to contend with.
If the thing blows, it's
That was a
blowing.
rhetorical question, because the same thing was when we did Rock's Village over. We used to have a weight limit, so if it's a Mass DOT, you
But I
have to
just
be able
don't
to
see
have
any
more.
benefits for West Newbury.
We hear you. I got you. There's some people.
Yes, my name's William Beard. I live in West Newbury, lived here since 1950. And it's good to see that the city of Newburyport and the selectmen are working together. I'm impressed with that. I've got some questions on the environmental disturbance and what's that actually gonna cost in the project?
So it's mostly in the environmental permitting. Oh, sorry about that. If you go over 100 cubic yards of dredge and fill, this is a fine line. If we're able to stay under that, the permitting's more standardized. As soon as you go over it, it becomes much more extensive. In the big scheme of the whole project, it's not a significant, or it is a portion of it, but it's not a significant portion of it. It's not a huge cost in the end.
Well, the reason I'm asking that is I see some of your designs and stuff, and I've been around the construction business all my life, and I wonder why you said the piles are very expensive, but to me, it would be more reasonable to drive H-beams and then put a pre-stressed concrete bridge up where we would not bother the environment at all, because we're not gonna be disturbing the water, we're not gonna have to put in cofferdams. It would just, it's done all over the country. There's bridge companies you can call up tomorrow that'll come with the engineer and everything, put it in and guarantee it. They put one in Lowell, and I think it took them 2 days to put the bridge in after they had their structure in.
Yep.
But I mean, if we were to go down there and drive piles 16 feet wide, we could put one big bridge on that if we're gonna use a pre-stressed concrete. And we're not gonna bother the environment as far as what we're gonna put into the reservoir itself. And I didn't see anything up there that looked like that, other than the only thing I heard from you was piles are expensive. Well, the head wall is gonna cost more than the pile driving is. So, I mean, I don't think you're really telling the story the way it is. I think it's more what someone wants to see. This is a big financial burden for both towns, and I think if we cut corners, that might allow to put sidewalks on both sides. And you pitch it into that hill, you're gonna have to raise the Newburyport side a little, I understand that, but you could pitch it into that hill and it would just feed in and be gone.
I can answer your questions. There are H-piles on this. It's called an integral abutment bridge, and there are pre-gas units. That's what we're proposing on the bridge. So it is in line with what you're talking about, but according to MassDOT standards, you have to go through certain processes. We would have to remove a significant portion of the existing bridge, and when you have to do that, you have to do it in the dry, which means that you would have
They have to put a cofferdam in anyways.
So you do have to do all these things. We have to follow the regulations. I know that they do certain things with a temporary situation and emergency repairs, but there is one in Lowell right now, and I think I'm talking about the same one you are. They're trying desperately to remove that. It's been out there for probably 25 years, and they're trying to remove that. It's out. They're requesting design firms to get out that process.
The one I'm talking about in Lowell is a composite one that they put up.
I was talking about the one that's like 1,000.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, buddy. Can we just pass it around and?
Hi, do you have to push something? Oh, hi, I'm Sue. What? Oh, Sue Abkowitz, Crawford, 411 Middle Street. We've lived there for 28 years. We have always used the reservoir and everything, and I must admit, since one of the pros of having the bridge closed is that there's very little traffic on our street now. Everybody's not cutting through to get to Newburyport. But that's a very small thing compared to replacing the bridge, which I think needs to be done. One of the concerns is I'm a doctor, and I know that the ambulances have trouble getting through. I mean, you have to go out. I mean, we have to go out, onto one, the main roads and everything to get back into Newburyport. And if there's emergency vehicles that need to go through, you absolutely, it's such an an advantage to be able to go straight in, and that's a really important thing. The other thing I want to say is that I think you really have to have a sidewalk. One sidewalk's fine, but you have to have a sidewalk. All the people that are fishing and doing stuff on the bridge, it's dangerous if people are coming through on cars. So that's my 2 cents.
A couple things. No disrespect to a comment that I heard, but I think it's an error regarding the pavement width of Middle Street between Garden Street and the bridge threshold. I measured it myself last week. I did about a half a dozen samples, and I found a perfectly uniform 20 feet. Then I measured the clearance inside the guardrail for the approximately 230 feet from the West Newbury side approaching it, and the clearances for that range between 22 feet and 19 feet, 7 inches, which in the curve, there's a small curve in that approach. That kind of addresses the part about sidewalks and the width of the bridge, to rationalize the width of the bridge and whether you do or don't have sidewalks. If you made any rational sense for having the sidewalks, then you got to widen Middle Street at least 4 feet if it's on one side, and 8 feet or 10 feet, whatever the width of the sidewalk, to match up the other side. That makes for a huge amount of retaining wall going up the hill, because there's a couple hundred feet of retaining wall projected because of the grade raise. And as it stands now, it's about a 1.5 to 1 at the flattest slope, and there's soil erosions and all. So I don't think there's a lot of room for width there, but that's on the factor of the sidewalks. I understand about the people that would just soon have it closed. Well, that's true of all things. I live on Main Street. I'd love if Middle Street was a bypass for Main Street. That'd be great. But in fact, Middle Street is an emergency bypass for Main Street at different times. If you had Artichoke passing on 113 wash out, and as somebody mentioned, it is the Seabrook nuclear power plant, one of the formalized emergency escape routes from that area. So that's thing, and I'll come back later.
Hi there, John Connors, 442 Middle Street. I'm the last house in West Newbury. My deck overlooks the bridge, and I've seen it all in the last 50 years. So basically, the day the bridge collapsed, there was a big 18-wheeler came up over the bridge, sat on the top of the hill. He looked down, debating whether to go across the bridge, and he crossed the bridge. About 15 minutes later, I heard the commotion. I walked down, and sure enough, he canceled it. But about 2016, I called the Newburyport DPW. I said, do you know how many 18-wheelers are going over that bridge every day? He said, well, I know this, but there's no weight limit. I said, well, I hope you have contingency plans, because something's going to happen here. And the only other observation I've had, Turkey Hill Road between Hale Street, 113, there are 2 signs that no trucks. So when you leave the industrial park from Newburyport, you can't go down Turkey Hill Road, Newburyport. You have to come over that bridge into West Newbury. And I only ask the selectmen to give us the same rights that the people in Newburyport have. Post it, no trucks. And I'd love that. Thank you.
Preston Rogers, 430 Middle. I live about a half a mile from the bridge. Grew up in West Newbury. I've got 2 or 3 questions. One, if there's no weight limit on this proposed bridge, does that imply that 18-wheelers can go across it?
Yes, it does.
It does, okay.
The answer is yes.
Yes, okay. Obviously, I am dead set against that. Secondly, since Middle Road was improved significantly for traffic about, 10, 12 years ago, and paved very nicely, the cars that have been going down Middle Road from Garden Street to the bridge do not adhere to the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. They are going 35, 45, 50 miles an hour. And when they get to the bridge, some slow down, some don't. So I think it's imperative that you have at minimum one sidewalk because there are many people that fish off that bridge. But moreover, there should be a plan to decrease the speed of these vehicles. I've seen West Newbury Police occasionally there to give tickets, whatnot, but it doesn't seem to be working. So I think that something needs to be done in the way of speed humps, which would slow down vehicular traffic significantly. Probably starting at Garden Street all the way to the bridge, and then on Newburyport side, whatever they choose to do. But sooner or later,
I don't believe you can put speed bumps
on a road, you can only do that in Florida.
Where it doesn't snow.
Yeah, that's true.
I got it. We need to have some type of reduced speed
Right.
monitoring and address it better than we already are.
And my point is, I think it needs to be more than monitoring.
I'd like to ask the engineers in terms of the road and the bridge is narrower than the proposed ones would be. And I've sort of felt that the narrowness is actually good in terms of slowing vehicles down. So you're proposing 24 feet, and I've measured it too, and it seems it's about 20, the road right next to the bridge. So would I'm just throwing this out, I don't know, would having it wider actually encourage greater speed? Is there any studies about that, you know, a more wide road is actually worse than a narrow road? I don't know.
Well, we hear this quite a bit, that, you know, you go to improve the road, get rid of the potholes, and there's increased speeds. What we're proposing here is 10-foot lanes with a 2-foot shoulder. It's a short stretch. Personally, I feel like the sidewalk is a good thing because certainly there are a lot of people who stop and fish or whatever. But the road that we're proposing is standard. 24 feet is not a wide road. So I don't know. I mean, I was going to say though that we have done traffic calming elements in other communities, and so those could be considered as something put up on the table.
Hi, my name is Dana Bridges, and I live on a Middle Street near these guys in the closed section. And I have two issues that I want to raise. I agree with a lot of what's been said. I think that the speed of the traffic is a real problem on this stretch of road. This is an area, if nobody's familiar with it, that a lot of people walk, bike, ride horses, and it's a narrow road and people fly down that road. Since the road's been closed, there's been less trash, and my kids are actually able to walk down the street without having to jump off the side of the road. So I think it's really important when we look at these bridge designs that we're taking into the fact that the bridge that we had before, I agree, seemed to kind of slow down traffic a little bit. And if we're building a wider bridge, is this going to be speeding up or accelerating traffic in an area where we're already dealing with traffic issues? So I think that has to be considered in the bridge design when we think about the traffic and the heavy pedestrian traffic in this area.
So you mentioned, can I piggyback on that? So you mentioned maybe some methods of trying to slow them down, some traffic calming. Would you maybe elaborate on that?
Well, I was going to say that we have put in, I mean, I'm talking about a wide variety of projects. Like, for instance, you've probably seen raised intersections, but there also is, in my opinion, on this road, the only thing traffic calming element would be the speed humps, which could be employed on each side
of the bridge.
Can I just have one other thing? Sorry. Okay.
You mentioned it, I wanted to make sure you got
Oh, okay. All right. And just one other thing was about the trucks. So back in 2016, I contacted the city of Newburyport, and I also contacted West Newbury Selectmen and DPW about the trucks, and specifically pointing out that Turkey Hill Road is posted as no trucks. And I think that the trucks are coming from the industrial area and are forced down Middle Street because they can't go down Turkey Hill. So I think that there should be consideration for posting Middle Street as no trucks, and also diverting the trucks onto a wider, safer, bigger road such as Low Street, back to the highway.
Yes.
My name is Matt Gagnon. I also live on Middle Street down in the section that's closed. So obviously I have an alternative motive, but the majority of the traffic, I believe, that goes down Middle Street is actually commuting traffic. It's not West Newbury residents. It's not Newburyport residents. It's commuter traffic. Between 7 and 9, and I'm the closest house to the street, you would not believe the number of cars that are going 50 miles an hour. It's literally bumper to bumper from 7 to 9, and then from basically 2 to around 5. Our kids go out to the bus stop and they all cut the corner too tight. They're driving too fast. The road has become a commuter road. It's an alternative to going down Main Street and avoiding all the lights to get to the industrial park. I know in some towns they have signs that posted that it's local traffic only during certain hours. On top of that, it has become a preferred route for a lot of the truck traffic, including the mail trucks. They diesel down in front of our house around 5:30 in the morning, wake up all the residents, tractor trailers all times of the day. So one of the alternatives, instead of putting traffic cones out there or traffic bumps or whatever else, is let's make it a one-lane road with a nice wide sidewalk. And then the cars can stop on each side alternatively and let cars go. It'll be a good alternative. Only local residents will want to use it. Trucks won't want to use it. People that live local that want to bike and ride will have plenty of road width. I'd even heard when we first moved in that the road was proposed as a scenic road. I mean, the number of runners and bikers that want to go up the road, if you go in there on any time of the day, especially during those early hours, you see all the runners and mountain bikers right now from 6 to probably 8 o'clock. There's probably, I don't know, at least 30 to 40 bikers every morning. And then between 3 and 7 o'clock at night, lots and lots of people walking, biking. That wasn't the case before. They get run over. So if there's a way to make this thing safe, or so what the other gentleman said is, we've got all these 6 iterations. Maybe one of the iterations should be not to replace the bridge at all. I'd like to hear that voted on also.
I like that.
Well, my name is Bob Tomasino. I live at 413 Middle Street. Yeah. I live on 413 Middle Street. My name is Bob Tomasino. I'm a recent resident of West Newbury. I used to live in Toppins Lane in Newburyport. So I came in just a year ago, just as the bridge closed. So I don't have the experience, but I have heard from neighbors, including Sue, Dr. Abkowitz, and in any event, about the problems of the, particularly the 18-wheelers, the big trucks. And that's the real concern that I've heard voiced a number of times from neighbors and others. So I assume the bridge is to be built at some point, which I respect and appreciate all the reasons for it. But if we could just avoid the trucks from being coming up and down that road, I'd be all in favor of that. So beyond that, I just wanted to thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Bethany Groftero. I live right off of Garden Street on Poors Lane, next to Buddy. Oh, sorry. Okay. My question actually was, I've lived on Garden Street for a very long time, and I know a lot of the people that are fishing there. I was wondering if you could speak to sort of are there any regulations about fishing there? Is there any? I don't think the fishing is necessarily the issue for me as much as coming over the bridge, and then cars are pulled over sometimes in the roadway, and of course the roadway is off the bridge is going to stay the same width. So is there any control over the number of people that can fish there? People get very excited and sort of wander into the road. I'm not asking for controls, I'm just wondering if there is some way to monitor that so we don't put a sidewalk up for fishermen and then have their cars in the road right off the bridge.
I might have something to comment to that. So although I live on a different corner of town, for me, Middle Street is my primary route to get downtown. And I don't drive that.
Or a truck.
Right. You have no 18-wheeler. So, and I also, half the time when I go over that bridge, I'm on my bike. There are a lot of fishermen, fisher people, fisher kids, fisher women, fishermen, all of the above. And the bridge, as proposed in option 2, has a guardrail that separates the sidewalk from the pavement, from the drivable pavement. So that's going to have some substantial impact on people stepping off, jumping off the edge of the bridge into the right of way. I can personally speak to having, not purposefully, but almost having killed a kid once on that bridge because I came breezing through, probably going 15 or 18 miles an hour on my bike, and he jumped off the bridge, not looking, he just jumped off in front of me, jumped back, landed in front of me, and it would not have been pretty if I'd hit him. So I just look at what's being proposed here with the sidewalk and a guardrail as being an incredibly positive step in making that bridge safe for people who use it recreationally.
We have a point of information. Yeah. There is no guardrail. There is no separation between the sidewalk and the road.
Okay, am I wrong? Okay, I'm sorry. There is a curb.
A curb.
Okay.
But the curb is huge benefit.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I guess I misread.
There is some separation.
So is the sidewalk higher?
5.5 foot with 8-inch curb reveal, so it's certainly a safe platform. That is the standard to fish on.
I just didn't want to get.
No, that's good. Thanks.
Are there any fishing regulations that I'm just wondering?
I honestly don't know any of them, but we'll check, especially when we're doing. I don't think there is.
I would think that would be more related to the Newburyport Water Department.
Yeah, I think you can fish in the reservoir. You just can't swim or boat on it.
Okay, we had some people. Okay.
No, I think as far as fishing regulations, it's close enough to the ocean that it falls under the, you don't need a fishing license to fish there, is the way I always looked at it. But anyways, the question I had is,
Hold on. We can't hear you, Jeff. Hold on for 1 second, please.
do we want to encourage people to fish off the bridge? Or should we try to get rid of the poison ivy and some of the brush along the side and have both towns allow people to fish on the gravel on the side? The problem with fishing off of the bridge is when David was young, and most people bring their young kids there, you've got 2, 3, 5, 6-year-olds, and they tend not to follow and worry about traffic. They see someone catch a fish, they go across, as you were saying, in front of the traffic. And I think we should be encouraging people to fish on the side, not on the bridge itself.
Yep, thanks. Forbes Jury, 15 Hilltop Circle. Just a couple quick points. I live remotely close to Selectman Parker on the other end of town, and I'd just like to also reiterate his point that Middle Street, for many people in Crane Neck Crescent, Hilltop Circle, is the primary thoroughfare between West Newbury and Newburyport, not 113. So it does have a significant impact on a large number of residents. The second point speaks to the one sidewalk alternative in scenario 2, and I guess my question is probably more for the selectmen and the representative for the city of Newburyport. In the 15 years that I've lived and traveled that street, people fish on both sides, okay? And it from April and through October, November, you'll find people on both sides of the street at the same time. And the question is, how effective is scenario 2 with only a single sidewalk when you have people fishing on both sides. All it takes is, one pedestrian accident would effectively be the cost of that entire additional sidewalk. So, question there. Thank you.
Start going back this weekend. There are people with their hands open. Is there anybody who hasn't talked yet? Just gonna go a second.
Just push this to speak.
No,
It's on. We're good. All right. I'm Byron Lane. I am from Newburyport, so I kind of feel like Frankenstein just popped up in the middle of the month. I'm like, please. But I grew up in town and I spent a lot of time fishing on that bridge, and I will tell you, throughout the years, as most recent as a couple years ago, it's never been just people lining at like a San Francisco pier where they're just fishing and there's no room. There are pull-offs up the road. My question is that everybody's been saying, no trucks. Why is it that you can't have no trucks pass through? Mr. Morrison, I think you.
I can talk a little bit about that. We actually, is your last name Bridges? You emailed Angus. So we've been looking into this for a while, but I looked into it much deeper. Legally, the towns aren't supposed to be the ones to make this decision. They're supposed to petition MassDOT, and there's some certain criteria that they would have to hit in order for it to be labeled no trucks.
Excuse me. On the bridge or on the roads?
On the roads.
On all the roads?
Well, no.
Town roads and the bridge. I just want to make sure when you're saying that, everybody understands exactly what you're talking about.
So legally, there's certain criteria you have to hit. It's percentage of trucks is one supposed to be between 5 and 8%. That's one of the criteria they look at. Cost of safety. 5 to 8% of the vehicles would be truck. Of your total traffic would be truck traffic.
Which is allowable.
That is when you start being able to.
That's the threshold.
That's when they start taking you more seriously, MassDOT would. We did take traffic counts before the bridge was closed, and you have basically, it took them over 3 days. You had 930 vehicles that went over. I think 32 of them were trucks. That puts you in the 3.5%. So both communities would have to get together, and then they'd have to petition the state, and they could say yes or they could say no, but it's not supposed to just be the agencies that decide.
Just want to, if you don't mind, just want to letter in on that, because Turkey did a couple times. So I think Micah just mentioned something that towns aren't supposed to go out and put signs. And I think 2016 we talked about the signs in Turkey Hill. They've been removed, and we're actually in the process of trying to figure out how to put them back up.
A couple of points. One, David said it a little bit ago, and one of the gentlemen at the table, narrowness does calm speed. There's no doubt about that. That's done in traffic engineering, is widely understood. But just drop back for a minute and about the sidewalk. I doubt, well, I won't say my lifetime, but some of the younger people's lifetime, there'll probably never be a sidewalk on Plummer, Spring Street, and Middle Street. So you're going to put a sidewalk on the bridge. You're putting a fishing pier there. It was what you're paying for. With a very expensive structure, you're going to have either 5 or 10 feet of sidewalk. That's like building a nice road and then allowing parking all over it so you can't use it. So I don't see the point of having the sidewalks because of the fore and aft conditions. And if you wish to accommodate fishing, hang a fishing pier off the side of it. But think about it that way. That's probably a lot less expensive than the full structure for the full length of the bridge. It might be a whole span, a beam, and the deck and so on.
One point about the Fisher people on the bridge. It's a very popular bridge for fishing, both sides, but I saw this almost every year for probably the last 8 or 10 years that the bridge was in existence, which is there were camp counselors there with 15 or 20 young kids fishing. And I don't know where they got permission or if they needed permission, but it was habitual for, let's say, 6 to 8 weeks every summer. And it's just damn lucky that nobody was killed, because you're talking young kids, 7, 8, 9 years old. I don't know how you address that, but that is the fact of what's been going on there.
Hi, Polly McDowell. I live on Indian Hill Street. I also commute to Newburyport for my job, and a lot of people from West Newbury do. So it's certainly, I appreciate the people that live on Middle Road that now almost live on a dead end, and they've had reduced traffic. It's been nice for them, but what you're not realizing is the traffic's been diverted to all the other streets. So we've certainly noticed an increase in traffic on Indian Hill Street since the bridge is closed, and puts a lot of other people out and on other roads. So that's, you know, something to consider.
Like to add to that, it hasn't really been brought up a lot, but public safety, ambulance response times. The ambulance is coming from Newburyport to take care of West Newbury. And so that, okay, but just to define it a little better, that's the route of someone coming to that area of West Newbury would be way more efficient to get the ambulance to that part of West Newbury rather than having to go that one.
They're coming and going.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, and remember with ambulances, every minute counts. That's just something to think about.
I can speak to this just because I live on the corner.
You need to use the microphone.
Okay,
I need the mic.
Buddy,
Excuse me.
There's no argument that the ambulances probably should be coming that way, but the reality is they didn't used to come that way. They'd come down Middle Street past my house when Gordon Follansby got sick. We had a couple runners that had problems. They always go down Garden Street and down Middle, and then they go back out and around. They don't do it. I don't know why, but they don't do it that way.
Because they didn't like the bridge.
Maybe, but on the other hand too, the only thing we have slowing the traffic down is those fishermen too. You should see at 2 o'clock in the morning when the bars let out, all the traffic that goes down the street. I mean, I don't know if there's anything we can do to slow the traffic down.
We gotta try.
Okay.
So is there anybody who's
As a selectman, believe me, everybody believes that old people only speed on their street. And no one ever says, my street is quiet, and everyone else says, everyone says their street, everyone speaks on my street, but not the other streets. Believe me, they speed on every street.
And it's from everybody from out of town, so we tell the police to stop it, and then we start getting phone calls, why are you pulling us all over? What the hell's going on? Okay.
Thanks, Glenn. I'm Jim Sparrowlakis. I'm a resident of West Newbury. I live on 380 Middle Street on the other, I'm not a direct abutter, but I live on the other side of Garden. And I have to agree with many of my fellow Middle Street residents. For a lot of the reasons I said, I'm not going to repeat, but I would be an advocate for two reasons to not actually repair the bridge. And those two reasons are, number one is I do think that it's kind of one of the most scenic roads in West Newbury. And I think that right now, for all the other people that use it, the traffic and the recreation, et cetera, I think sooner or later, we're going to have a major accident. And I think that I would like to avoid that, which I'm sure everybody in this room would. And then number two was, we haven't even really discussed this, but it's going to be a fairly costly project. And I don't know, I sometimes think our town can use the money in a better way than fixing this bridge. So I just want to advocate for leaving it the way it is, and actually not fixing the bridge and making it so that traffic, trucks, et cetera, can go on it.
On the cost that's the reason why Lenny is going to give us that $1 million.
Sorry, I have to go.
I drive these streets a lot, and I go back and forth in and out of Newburyport at least twice a day. And I used to go up and down Middle Street until it was closed. I have to tell you, all the streets in West Newbury are driven faster than the speed limits. Indian Hill is driven faster than speed limit. 113, I have people crawling up my tailpipe trying to push me down the road. So truly, and especially at commuter times in the morning and in the afternoons, our police really should be out watching speeders on all the roads that are coming in and out of West Newbury. But I don't think that that's a reason alone to not rebuild the bridge so that there's another way of getting out. Twice last week, I drove into Newburyport in the morning, and the traffic jams on High Street and the consequent traffic jam down on Water Street for all the people trying to get off High Street down to Water Street was unbelievable. I'm not really sure what was happening, but everybody came to a complete standstill on one of those days. So to completely rely on people coming out of West Newbury to use 113 is crazy. That's a whole town funneling out on 113 to Newburyport. So to at least have a secondary road, but really work on getting people to slow down in the town would be helpful.
We understand everything, we could even have another meeting just with West Newbury people to take care of all your wants and wishes. But I think we want to walk out of here tonight, or at least have some type of sense, because they have spent a lot of time on different designs of bridges. So we want to we've kind of narrowed it down to two. If anybody can kind of focus on those, and then we can talk about the other stuff, because we don't want to go on and then we don't really get a good sense of what bridge we really want. You know what I mean? I think we're listening, but I think that's what we were here for. So these two proposals, 1 and 2, they're both 24, and then we have a sidewalk. I mean, if you get Castaway that does it, you don't want it done and all that stuff, you just kind of have to say, hey, it's going to get done. What could be the best case scenario that I can see there? I think that's what we're kind of here. It's going to get built. So we're here to try to get as much input as we possibly can. And we've listened to traffic calming, we've listened to trucks, and we've listened to better speed control, I guess, and something with local traffic. It is a public road too. We can't limit it. I mean, we always want to limit our roads from other people, but we drive over their roads when we go on vacation to New Hampshire or go to another town going shopping. I mean, it is a public thing that we have to, it's a give and take, obviously. So that's what I would like to try to come out of here and listen to people, because I'm just one person.
We could make it a toll.
So, no, my taxes just went up. No. So you read my mind, because we're here for looking at two options. My name is Mary Kachpudi. But these are two that you've kind of narrowed down to. My name is Mary Kachpudi, and I live on Main Street, and I grew up on Garden Street. My sisters and I walk these streets, and I would say I like option number 2. I walked the reservoir. My sisters and I moved over. I like the fact there's a little spot there. I know we're talking about fishing. I have a 10-year-old boy who rides his bike down there. I'm not always with him, and I would like a little safe spot for him on the side. I can't guarantee what my 10-year-old's going to do when I'm not there all the time. So I like option number 2, and I think it's safe for the people who are there as pedestrians, and it allows the cars to go through. And it's not that much wider than what we were hearing tonight. We're going from 8 feet to 10 for each lane. So it kind of got, I think, a little bit with the numbers, but I like option number 2.
So one thing I'd like to make one good comment, but I don't see that sidewalk as a fishing spot. People will fish there. When you're on a bridge, if you have it's 24 feet wide. You have a 10-foot travel lane in each location, and you have 2 feet on either side where that that stripe on either side goes down. So if your boy is going, or girl, whatever, is going over there, if somebody gets too close, if you're not on a bridge and you're on a regular road, you get to jump maybe and move it into somebody's front lawn or something like that, and get away from some type of danger. On a bridge, you don't. You get to jump over. So even though people are going to be using it for fishing, it's still a way for somebody to get over the bridge safely.
Right. I look at it as safety. I understand safety. The sidewalk's going to be up higher, though, so you can't go over. You have to walk over.
It doesn't help.
Didn't someone say that the sidewalk was
Yeah,
there?
you walk, you might go.
The only
You
thing
have to
I
climb
wanted,
up the-
I wanted to
I'm still in favor of this.
expand on Glenn's comment there. The reason really that we chose 24 feet width is that 10 feet is a minimum width for a car. But now what we've done is we've added this 2-foot strip for the jogger, the biker, the pedestrian. It's something. So it's a balance. It's not a super highway, but it gives a little bit of extra room on the side of the lanes. And so we're trying, you know, we love all the input and everything, but we've got to come to some sort of balance on this roadway and the way it functions. And so we're putting it out there as 2-foot shoulder on both sides and 10-foot lane.
Okay. So I just want to make one super quick point about the traffic. Everyone is saying like, oh, you know, nobody speeds except on my road. But I think this is really important in this particular stretch of road because of the high amount of walkers and bikers and horseback riders. I mean, people make the loop around the reservoir. It's a really popular place to walk. So I don't think it's necessarily like all the other roads in West Newbury. However, if I had to choose between alternative 1 and 2, I would choose alternative number 1 and agree with Mr. Baker's point about creating or cleaning up a spot closer to the water off of the bridge for people to fish.
So you understand what 2 feet is? So 2 feet is probably from the end to right there on either side.
Yeah.
So now her boy who wants to go down and visit his friends on the other side of the bridge will take his bike, and this is the space that he has to get over a bridge from here to here, maybe like there, with his bike.
Yeah, and he's
coming this way, and the car coming the other way, and he has no way to move because there's a guardrail on his left hand.
but to get to that bridge, yeah. So to get to that bridge, Glenn,
Right or wrong, I just want to make sometimes
so to get to that bridge, he's on a 20-foot wide road or smaller with traffic and no sidewalk. There's no leaves. It's poison ivy in a ditch.
Okay, I understand your point, but we're here for the bridge. We have a major problem with traffic and speed.
Right.
I have 4 or 5 notes on that. That's something we might want to have a little community meeting out in your area to take care of. Maybe we need to start doing that a little bit more with the new police chief. Maybe that's something. But we got it. We understand it, and you're not unique, but this is kind of the problem with West Newbury. We have so many beautiful roads and they're so well paved. And you know, and you're just like you're on a country.
Let's keep them that way.
You're on a BMW commercial. You know what I mean? And it stinks that way because people just start going, "Ooh, it's just beautiful to drive on." So
Yeah,
but,
sorry.
But we understand that, but we need to get about the bridge.
All right. I think two quick points that I think have already been made, but I just want to make them again. This is a commuter route. It's a commuter route. So this is people going to the industrial park from all parts of town. And it's also probably one of the more mocked roads in town. So having room or not room is a big deal. Second, if we widen the bridge and we make it easier for cars to go over, which is obviously the end goal of an engineer or anybody in town, we will increase traffic on that road. You're going to increase more commuters. You're going to have more problems. So if there's a way to narrow the road, go to 1 lane, go back to what was there and put the fishermen on there to keep people going slower, at least we guarantee that it's not going to get worse than it currently is.
The problem with that, it sounds all good on paper, but then when you have to deal with the state and DOT, they're not going to allow that. Because there are so many standards and so many specifications that you have to do when you upgrade a bridge. To give you an analogy, when we did Ross Village Bridge, that had a weight restriction on it. But if we were going to use their money, that was that shovel-ready bridge money, we had to then, I mean, the pilings and everything for the bridge were strong enough. Back when whoever they did a wonderful job. But we had to then increase that, you know what I mean? And so then we had to have 18 wheels go across there because if you're going to take their money, you gotta. They want them the specifics to get better. You know what I mean by that? They don't want to limit stuff.
But I think the reason why Dan is voting for a smaller bridge is because it should slow down traffic. If you do have all the kids out there fishing, it's going to slow down traffic.
she's not voting for a smaller bridge. She's just voting for one. Okay, I understand. She's just voting for without a sidewalk. But we're not saying one of the other ones aren't off the table. We're just thinking that this. I don't know what I'm thinking right now, but I'm just listening.
Well, I am in favor of the sidewalk on the bridge. I think that's a wise decision with all these walkers that we've been hearing about. But I guess I'd like to know, where do these walkers go when they get to Garden Street? All of a sudden, we're in a big road, and they make this design sound like this road is just designed to walk back and forth. Well, it's a commuter route. There's no doubt about it. It brings people to Newburyport. It's a necessity, and it's the old theory, not in my backyard, but they moved into our backyard. This road was here before they got here.
Where do your grandkids walk every day?
Pardon me?
Where do your grandkids walk there all the day, and the other viewers of the See, one thing we get, hold on, we don't want to get into that. Yeah, because then it gets out of control.
Can I just add a call? So, for a traffic calming mechanism for the bridge, do we have to paint the double yellow on the bridge? So if we take out the yellow and it looks like you're going head on to somebody, that's a traffic calming mechanism. So when you talk about a narrow bridge, sometimes perception of a narrow bridge might be a way of traffic calming. So instead of having two marked 20-foot lanes, there's just one lane. They don't know it's 20 feet until you come on to somebody else. You have to move to the side. That's what we had before.
What I was going to say is, there's no striping on the road today.
That's correct.
We would not put any striping back.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure, because we kept talking about 10-foot lanes and a 2-foot shoulder. It's really not a 10-foot lane. It's a 20-foot lane. A 20-foot lane sounds big, but when you get two cars coming head onto each other and you don't have a yellow to guide you, that's why we had slower traffic over the bridge when two cars were crossing each other, because you weren't sure that other person was going to pull over to the side until they actually pushed over. So I just wanted to get that out, because I think the 24 is a little bit deceiving, because if we had a yellow, I agree with you, it will feel wide. Without the yellow line, I think you got to have this little, you'll feel squeezed. Thank you.
Okay, does anyone have anything that hasn't been said before? Let's not reiterate what you're thinking is.
Well, yeah.
You don't have.
Yeah. Well, just on the subject of the walkers, there are a lot of walkers from the Newburyport side, the Turkey Hill area, that walk across the bridge, go to Garden Street, turn around and go back. Secondly, I have a question about, is the Rocks Village Bridge is extraordinarily narrow now. I don't think you can take a bicycle across it. Is this bridge, proposed bridge, without sidewalks, going to be the same width as the Rocks Village Bridge, or is it going to be 4 feet wider?
The reason why the Rocks Village Bridge got smaller too, sir, when we did it, was when they mentioned earlier about those safety guardrails.
Yeah.
So we've never had those safety guardrails before. They did it over, and then we had to put the safety guardrails on, so when somebody hits it, they don't hit the bridge. They hit the
Right, they hit the guardrails.
How wide is Rocks Village with those safety guardrails? The existing one, so it's like 20 feet. Just to give you some kind of an idea.
Well, there's going to be an accident on the Rocks Village Bridge.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
I had nothing to say.
No. But just so you know, there was no money on that one. We advocated for sidewalks on that one. That was the selectmen back then. And there was no money from the state, but they did engineer it that if there was any money in the future, that they could cantilever sidewalks off the side, which they said they would do. So it could be done, but there's never, they just want you to be quiet and stop asking the question. But it could be done if there's ever money for it. It is engineered for sidewalk. We did try for that.
Yeah, the planning board in their subdivision guidelines or regs for road construction, their standard cross section for a subdivision road is 24 feet. Yet in the last 5 years, they have been waiving that to 22, 20 foot width, etc. Have you taken any consideration into what the general trend of what the planning board has used for a guideline for aesthetic visibilities in town?
But are you talking about the private roads like Sullivan's Court and then now the one behind the Legion? Because those are private roads rather than...
Some are private, some like Knoll Farm Drive are public ways that were built 20 feet wide.
Yeah, I'm not going to rush the table. I stopped doing that a couple of years ago. So it's been determined that the bridge is being built, because my wife's going to ask me. Has it been determined?
You can blame it on me if it's bad.
Okay, no, has it been determined that a bridge is being built?
Yeah.
Okay, regardless of the cost?
Well, no, that's...
Well, okay, so, okay.
No.
Thank you.
No. Well, I think...
Money is important.
Well, of course it is, sir. But what you looked at is going to, just hypothetically right now, is $2.5 million to build. They all were, when you say more expensive or whatever, they all kind of came in at 2.2, 2.4, they all, so it's going to be $2.5 million to build. Our portion is going to be 50% of that, Newbury Port's going to be 50% of that. And we're right now hopefully going to get that grant for $1 million. And so, but for some strange reason, something comes up, I would hope, at least I can't speak for the other two gentlemen, but if something comes up that this gets blown out of the water and it's $5 million, we're gonna have a lot more thinking there.
Yeah, it's gotta be revisited.
Yeah, I mean,
good. You have something new?
I believe it's new. I stepped in a few minutes late, but the question that I have is with respect to the sidewalk, assuming you go the sidewalk route, is there a ramping onto the sidewalk from the entrances to the bridge on both sides?
Yes, we have to
Okay.
put wheelchair ramps on both sides because this public line has to be accessible.
Well, and it would also be beneficial to bikers who are traveling along and they can just slow down and get onto the bike. Right, not halfway through, okay. Right, exactly. Terrific. Thank you.
Anything new? So, why don't we?
All right, I'm just going to say one thing. I'm so, and I mean this really with great love to all of you, but it seems to me like the difference between this narrow winding road that's used by bikers and walkers and all the other beautiful narrow winding roads in West Newbury is that there are fishermen there on the road. I mean, of course there are walkers and bikers, but I drove over that bridge the day I got my license, and I have come very close to clipping kids dozens of times, and I'm not the fast speeder. I just feel like there's got to be something in this plan to address that unique aspect of this bridge, that there are all these kids and families, some of whom are not familiar with town, who come in, they use that bridge, and they don't, can there be signage? Can there be a barrier that allows a kid with a bike to hop onto the sidewalk if they feel like they're in danger, but would give some sort of physical, visual barrier for people that are fishing? I just think that is the difference between this and other projects to me.
Now, it might be helpful for us if, why don't we just show it, out of these two, show a hand of the just kind of show us. We might not go with it, we might just so we get a sense of what's going on here. I know it's going to get built under proper circumstances. So I think we've heard about the width of it. It's 10 feet's not a big span. I understand that bringing it in and making it one way, DOT won't allow that. It will be very hard to be able to even get that passed. We won't be able to get the grants that we're going to get. I mean, a lot of these things that you're talking about, then there are some qualifications that you have.
I would ask Angus about that, because in terms of the Mass Works grant, for example, would us suggesting a narrower span, would that...
Or one way.
Any of those things, would would that adversely affect that?
Want to speak to that?
I think BSC could speak about the
I
grant.
was gonna say that, our understanding is Mass DOT would not allow one-lane bridge, right?
So, and the application has already been submitted. If you change it, if you were to change it now, you're most likely not gonna get it. We submitted some of the drawings. We submitted option 1 and option 2 as part of the application. So that's what they're basing their grants being awarded on. If you guys do get this grant, if you start changing it up, you are going to the bottom of the pile.
So if you had a choice, number one, without the sidewalk, anybody in favor of that? Number 2 with the sidewalk? And we even got the Newbury report back. Do what I can. That's good for the paper that Newbury report and West Newbury was represented. Thank you very much for coming in. Thank you. If you remember something on your way home or something like that, email us. Down at the
Yeah.
You won't find it in there.
Well, there was an email I sent around today.
That's fine, let's just go.
No, but Glenn says we don't want it down by the river there.
Yeah, I don't want
the bridge.
Yeah,
Oh, because of the.
I don't want to step on anybody else's toes because it's not our jurisdiction.
Oh, good. So they asked for a top of Church Street or Bridge Street.
Fine.
Intersection of Church and Bridge.
Fine.
Wait a minute, that's it.
Intersection of
Church and Bridge is the.
That's not us.
Okay.
I thought you meant, that's not us, that's the
Yeah, they asked
Clarity.
park and rec. Yeah, they asked, as I look at the list, there's a couple, so they asked for pipe stay of entrance and exit.
That's fine,
Intersection of Ash and Middle.
that's fine.
Intersection of Main and Maple.
That's us, yeah. That's okay.
And then Camet Field Island and Bachelor, which is park and rec, so.
Camet and that
Right.
down there is not us.
Good, okay.
Okay, so with those amendments, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Are you making this one, Rick?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had that written down somewhere.
So this is regarding a interim town accountant. And so this is regarding appointing an interim town accountant for the period until we have a new full-time permanent town accountant on staff. So I move to appoint Michael Morris of Newburyport as interim town accountant effective September 24th, which is tomorrow.
Second for discussion. Might have asked a couple of questions, Mr. Chairman?
No.
How we, just give us like a 2-minute thing, like how we paying for it, what's it all gonna be and all that kind of.
Sure.
Does this affect the budget?
Yeah, that's a good
Sure.
question.
So we're able to absorb the cost within the approved budget, which is great. There's no additional appropriation needed. So as you know, town accountant has accepted a new job with a school district. So her last day is this Thursday. So obviously it's a critical time with setting the tax rate and the closeout of FY19. And so we had solicited proposals from consultants as well as looking for retirees. And we had received what I think was a a very sound proposal from a consultant who'd actually worked here before, but I wanted to let that play out because I felt if we could get someone who could be present more than just 1 day a week, that would be a plus. So through a referral from our, we posted it through the Mass Municipal Accounting and Auditors Association, and but it was actually a referral from our auditor, who was aware that there was a recently retired, longtime town accountant, about 35 years in the town of Wilmington, who lives just next door in Newburyport. And he just retired the end of June, so he wasn't actively looking for work. He just retired, but
Now the summer's over, he's looking for a little.
well, that's what Tony said in his experience, that once the summer's over, people are interested. So he's still working 1 day a week in Wilmington. So I met with him last week. We had a good meeting. He's highly qualified, not just on the kind of week-to-week warrants and the payroll warrants, but also things like the financial statements and the closeout of FY19. Lori's pushing that as far as she possibly can before she goes, but she was part of the meeting, part of the meeting, and she felt very confident that she could just turn over to him where she is with those Schedule A and the tax recap and all of those things. So yeah, I'd be very pleased to.
He'll be here when? So is there going to be some, what do you want?
Some overlap.
Thank you.
Yep, yeah. So obviously this is all pending the board's approval, but with the board's vote, he would come by tomorrow afternoon at 1 to be here for the second half of the day to basically shadow Lori on a payroll. Tomorrow's a payroll day, and then he would come in on Thursday for the full day, and would shadow her on the first AP warrant, accounts payable warrant. And then starting next week, he'd be here on a regular 2 day a week basis. So I did mention in terms of fitting it within the budget, the assumptions I'm making are 14 hours a week. So 2 nearly full days, basically 8 to 3:30, Tuesday and Thursday. And for budgeting purposes, I'm assuming a 6-week period. I actually think it will end up being less than that. So I've been a little bit conservative on the budgeting, and there's still some room there. So if it turns out we need to authorize more hours, we can do that.
Okay.
Morris.
So call the vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, if you turn the clock back just a couple of weeks, and obviously it was a big curveball to get Lori's letter, and I feel very comfortable not just with the appointment of the interim, but we've also, we're looking at some, I think we'll end up in a strong position with the town accountant
I heard
position.
great applicants. That's all.
Yes, yeah.
Take a motion to adjourn? What else do we have?
Were we going to look at the warrant?
We're gonna look at
Oh.
the warrant.
So this is,
These are here, this is the ones we haven't shown.
so which,
So this, are we closing them tonight, correct?
correct.
Okay, so what do you want to do, Mr. Chairman? Do we have anything
Well, let's just, look,
want to go right down?
yeah, okay, Article 2, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a transfer from available funds the sum of $11,500 to fund additional frequency testing for the post-closure of the steel landfill.
So,
from
Mr.
the
Chairman,
Board of Health.
just so nobody gets confused, we're not voting yes or no or anything about them. The warrants are closed, and we want to just make sure that we keep them on the warrant for further review by us and further review by the FinCom.
Correct.
Thank you. Yep, I'd keep that one on.
Okay? I agree. Okay, okay. Article 3, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate transfer from available funds the sum of $66,000 to fund the planning, design, and installation of gas migration interceptor trench for the post-closure of the steel landfill and related costs.
Okay.
So, sort
Keep
of
that
an
on.
additional thing relating to the landfill.
I mean, I have a lot of comments about this, like these things need to start getting in their operating budget if they're gonna be testing, but we'll have those conversations at a later date. This is just all about keeping them on tonight, right?
Right.
Okay.
Article 4, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a transfer from available funds a sum of $50,000 to fund all costs associated with the initial implementation of a multi-year plan to remove or otherwise address high hazard trees in West Newbury. From
Okay.
the DPW.
I'll keep it on.
Okay. 5, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate transfer available funds a sum of $9,500 to fund the purchase and installation of a small salter unit on an existing DPW vehicle.
Keep that
Good
on.
with that. To see if the, and again, we're not voting on these, we don't have all the facts, we're just saying whether we think they even deserve to be evaluated.
Yep.
Article 6, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and transfer from available funds a sum of $5,000 to fund all costs pertaining to installation of 2 additional inline dehumidifiers in the GAR library and $26,000 to supplement the operating budget. So in other words, is this 7,600 or 5, is 2,600 built into the 5?
No, it is 7,600, and I debated how to frame the language in the article, because the
I
article.
would make those 2 separate articles, because
Okay.
it's confusing immediately.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when I first wondered.
Okay, and then number 7 is the Community Preservation Act to reserve some.
And this is another one where I broke them apart. The actual. Yeah, so the actual request from the Housing Authority, which was favorably recommended last Thursday by the CPC, was for the combined amount of that the housing, which was, I believe, 362, 373, or let's see, 363. To yeah.
I can add it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I did, this language, I'll review with Mike. Mike gave it a
from different places, right? That you wanted to kind of show us whether it's coming from.
That's, yeah, and I took, yeah.
State match of 360.
But at this stage, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
So we understand, then you clean it up at the end.
Right.
I want to keep that on.
Yep.
8, see if the town will vote to transfer from CPA money, historic preservation reserve the sum of $600 for the purchase and installation of a historical marker to recognize and commemorate former West Newbury resident Julian Steele.
Definitely, I'll keep that one.
Yeah. 9, see if the town will appropriate $1,500,000 or any other amount to pay the cost of reconstructing and making extraordinary repairs to the soldiers and sailors memorial building, otherwise known as the car post, including but not limited to interior and exterior restoration of the building fabric, installation of a septic system, installation of walkways and signage, hazardous materials remediation, replacement of electrical, plumbing, HVAC, and fire alarm system, and for the payment of all other costs incidental and related thereto. To determine whether this amount shall be raised by taxation, transfer from available funds, including amounts in the CPC fund, borrowing or otherwise, or take any other action.
Okay, I'll keep that on.
Yeah. Okay. 10, funds of $15,000 for unemployment insurance expense line, to pay expenses resulting from assessments levied by the Massachusetts Department of Unemployment.
Keep that on.
Yeah. To 11, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate transfer of available funds the sum of to fix the current, to reduce the current year tax rate. Fix is not.
Keep that on.
Wording's with it.
So I will have a number for you this week.
Okay.
Our next meeting?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, Article 12, to amend Section 2, definitions of the West Newbury zoning bylaw by amending existing definitions and so forth, in alphabetical order, but from the planning board. So this has to go to a public hearing before it can, So I assume they've scheduled that.
They have scheduled that for October 1st, which is a Tuesday.
Okay, same related to Article 13, which is some verbiage related to West Newbury to amend the existing term Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, each time it occurs in the West Newbury zoning bylaw by adding a reference to Section 4. Okay?